Greetings. This is Arvette McLean of Speak, the Universe Listens. As a very young person, I always felt that I carried the weight of the world on my shoulders, having to make grown-up decisions in order to survive a life marked with physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. While my face was smiling on the outside, on the inside, I always secretly cried and felt miserable. However, over the years, I learned some gems that helped to turn my life around. I now get to live the life of my dreams, filled with love, travel, and wonderment. And I am absolutely passionate about sharing what I have learned with you. If you want to live your best life, tune in each week as I, along with some amazing guests, share these life-changing gems with you. Inspired to be more, do more, have more. Welcome to Speak, the Universe Listens. And today's topic is transcending fear. And I have Stephen joining me today. How are you, Stephen?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I see you joining me from your car again.
Yeah, from the car again.
So Stephen actually stays on the go. That's why he's in his car. But I actually can only get connection from the Hardys because I'm out in the country somewhere and it's just hard to get internet connection. So once again, I'm in the Hardys parking lot. Yay. All right. Like fear actually can wreak havoc on us and stop us in our tracks a lot of times and keep us from having a lot of the biggest joys in life because we're afraid to take certain steps.
Right, right. I would say with fear, the main thing I would say with fear is where is the fear coming from? I think that's a question that all of us need to ask. So when you think about fear, what is it that is stopping you from making the necessary changes in your life or accomplishing the goals that you want to accomplish in your life? And I think everybody's is different. Never, everybody is different. But for the most part, when you sit back and you think about it, you'll be like, wow, I'm letting this hold me back. I can tell you, as far as fear with myself, my biggest fear was being in front of a camera.
What?
Yeah. That was my biggest fear. Talking to people, because for me, I never, at one point, I never was a people person. I always sort of kept to myself, and the only reason why was because the way I was brought up. My mom, she was sort of like that. She really didn't talk to too many people. She kept to herself, and so by me being around that, I took on that trait. And when I figured out what it was that I really wanted to do in my life, I had to change some things. So I had to sit back and, you know, talk to people. I had to interact with people. And I was like, you know what? Now you got to change. So I figured out what my fear was. And so when I figured out what it was, then that led me to go into the next phase of um, changing it, fixing the problem. And I think with a lot of us, everybody has a fear of something. It could be fear of heights, it could be fear of dogs, public speaking, a variety of things. But when you really take the necessary steps to just sort of question yourself first, as where is the fear coming from, right? Then that will give you a general idea of how to go about overcoming it.
Yes, I love how you are always so analytical. It's like you always start with first, think about it, identify what the issue is. And then once you identify it, then you can start taking some steps. I always love your practical approach to things. And of course, I always start with we're connected to the source of all that is. And so when we
Right,
think about, like you have mentioned, all of us have fears. And where does it come from? And in reality, where your fear comes from is our belief that we're separate.
Mhm.
Like you wouldn't fear something that you believe you're a part of, that this is you. And so, because we believe we're separate from our creator, we're separate from each other, we're separate from, like there could be things set up in our environment to hurt us. As long as we're operating from a perspective of separateness, then we are going to have fear. And so, the more we can start remembering, calling to our attention that we're not separate, we are a part of all this is the same. I'm not going to hurt you because I'm the same as you. But if
Right.
I'm conceptualizing you as different from me, then I could very well hurt you. So the more we start conceptualizing ourselves as the same, and tapping into that flow of where we are the same, then that can help us to transcend fear. But traditionally, and I am going to come back to that, but traditionally, when you hear people talk about fear, really what they say is, instead of don't worry about being afraid. We're all afraid.
Right.
So instead of letting it stop you, just be afraid and do it anyway. So that's what you
Mhm.
hear people say oftentimes.
That's very true. That's very true. I could tell you, my biggest fear, when I uh got to this point in my life of just changing my whole thought process and my belief systems on things. Um, my biggest fear was breaking away from the attachment. You know, I was a religious person at one time, and at one time, that's because I was brought up with that, right? And so over time, as I became a little bit more awakened with certain things, and um, it sort of made me really think about things in a different viewpoint. Then my thought process, my belief system, it changed. But at that time, I was so scared to break away from what I was so used to because I didn't know no better. I really didn't. All I knew was what I was taught, right? And so it was like, well, this is all that I know. But now that I have this, it's like, okay, I got something new. So now I'm comparing the new to my old. And so when I had that, it sort of made me uh I was still scared. Don't get me wrong, I was still scared, but it made me overcome that aspect of my life of not being afraid to go ahead and transform and step into that new territory that I was so scared to step into. And I think a lot of people are uh more scared of letting go the old to bring in the new,
Mhm.
because we talked about it before. It's so easy to sit back and hold on to what you know, but when
Right.
you're given something new, it's very, very hard to accept it,
Right.
because this is something that's unfamiliar to you. And when something is unfamiliar to you, a lot of people don't know how to take that. And so you have to get to the point of your life as to where, when it comes to fear, you have to have an open mind. Okay. And when you got that open mind, it's like, okay, you may still be fearful, but even if you are fearful and you're trying and you're making the baby steps to adjust and try something new, then you'll be surprised. Hey, that fear starts to wear off a little bit. Every time you make a baby step, you're fearful, but you're still moving.
Mhm.
You're still elevating at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like a bird, a baby bird getting ready to fly. You know, they don't know nothing about flying. It's just they have no fear at all. They leave the nest, and they either gonna hit the ground or they either gonna fly. They either gonna fly. So I would tell anybody, hey, to overcome that fear, just sort of do. And then when you start to do, the fear sort of asides, it fades away a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that too. I think it might have been a blessing now that I'm thinking about it. But in my life, I've been afraid of everything, like of just everything. Like everything has scared me in my life. So I basically lived my entire life in fear. And in order to make steps forward, I had to be courageous, or else I would have done nothing. Like, I'd be paralyzed. Because when I say everything, I mean everything. Things that people be like, what? What? Why? You know, like that don't faze me at all. But everything. And so in order for me to even live life um looking like a regular person, I had to be very courageous. And so a lot of people are stunned when I say these things, you know, that I'm so fearful about things, because they're like, but you do everything. And I'm like, yeah, but I'd be scared.
I'll be scared,
I do
yeah.
it scared. You know, it's almost like I hold my breath and I just run through it as fast as I can to get to the other
Right.
side or whatever. So, and also like, one thing that I do a lot, like I don't know how to do half the stuff that I do. Like I just don't know how to do it. And so I will actually just look it up. Like I just look up everything. And
Right.
nowadays, you know, it's so easy to Google stuff and have YouTube and look up stuff or whatever. So I just look up everything. And what I realized, I guess, in that process, like people are always like, well, I don't know how to do it. I'm like, I don't know how to do it either. I just looked it up. And it's like everything is hard when you don't know how to do it.
Mm.
But once
Yeah,
you
that's
know how
true.
to do it, then it's not hard anymore. So it's like it's the same with our fears. Like we're afraid of it because we don't know what's on the other side, or we haven't been there before. And like you were saying, once you start taking steps, then it makes it the challenge. It looks smaller and smaller, and it's kind of like it disappears.
Right, right. And
Mhm.
I say too, uh, with fear, a lot of people just they're so tied up in this thought process of worrying about what somebody else thinks about, you know, because a lot of people aim to please others, people please. And we never want to disappoint nobody, especially your family members and your friends. You want people to like you and you want people to love you. But then also you gotta get to the point of understanding that sometimes you got to do things for you. And when you do things for you, a lot of people are not gonna like that. So with fear, you have to understand that it's okay to sit back and change and do something different. Because why would you want to sit back and stay in the same spot and not elevate yourself, And like I said before, it gets to a point as to where people just get comfortable to holding on to that attachment because they don't know nothing else.
Mhm.
So I always say, my biggest thing is, having this mindset of believing that everybody is right in their own perception. And nobody is never wrong. Everybody is right. And I think that when you think like that, it opens up an individual's mindset, and when the mindset get open, as far as being able to receive something new, change wise, then that sort of relieves the fear. It makes them not as fearful, because now they're taking on something as to where it's new, but it feels good. It's like learning. Everybody loves to learn something new, and I think that with that, a lot of people just really, uh, it just with fear itself, it just holds them back, and they don't really need to hold itself back. It just do. That's all you got to do.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. I let fear hold me back often, and
really.
what I realize is, instead of me having to be courageous,
Mm,
I have decided to work on releasing fear, becoming fearless. And so
nah,
then I don't have to be courageous. And so that goes back to what I was saying earlier about recognizing our connection with all that is. And
mhm,
love actually overcomes everything. And
yeah.
so the more you can pour out love into that space of whatever you're fearing, the more that thing will love you back. And so, one of the examples you just gave about being afraid to talk to people, that's me all day long, up and down. Like, and so I'm one of the few people that I know, like, I hate parties. Like, I just don't like going to parties. I don't like going to any type of social function where you got to talk to people and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
really, it was like really so bad for me because my husband, on the other hand, oh, he loves those things. Like he
Right.
thrives in those types of settings, and he loves bringing people together. And you know, just for him, it's like magic and miracles. And so me, I would be like there but not there, and I'd
I get.
hide and I, go somewhere and make myself busy, or I'm the person that's collecting coats at the door, or I'm doing the cleanup because I
Right.
don't want to have to talk to anybody. Right. And so what I realized was and this is just how I did it in my head, was
Right.
that I was actually being kind of selfish in a sense, because I would listen to other people tell me all kinds of things. I always know the scoop because I listen and I hear everything, right? And so people like to tell me everything, and I like knowing too. I like being in the know, but
Yeah. Oh, you listen.
I hear it all, but I never said anything, and
Right.
because I just didn't know what to say. I don't have anything to say or whatever. And but what I started doing was, knowing that I'm about to go into this situation with people, then I started sending out my love in advance. So I
Mm.
send my loving energy out to the people that's at the party, and I'm seeing myself radiate love towards these people. And so when I'm now in their presence, I'm just radiating love. Like that's all I'm doing. And so when I'm in that space of loving them, all my fear vanishes. And I don't even know what I become, but I become something different. I become I'm like connected to them, you know.
Right.
And I do this in a lot of different situations. Like when I used to kind of like swim. I used to do triathlons like
Hmm.
a few years back, and I hadn't done them in a while. And then
Right.
I decided to get back in the pool. And when I got back in the pool, I don't know what it was. I was starting to have panic attacks in the pool, and to the point where I was like, I don't even want to swim anymore because it was just causing me a great deal of anxiety. And then I remember, okay, let me love this situation. And so I
Right.
would love the water. And I would be like, just send my loving energy to the water and just think about, the cooling effect of the water, and
Hmm.
just see myself gliding effortlessly through the water. So I would have these images of the water. And so
Right.
it will allow me to get in the water. And so every so often I would still get panic struck. And when I did, then I would go back to love, and I would pour my love to the
Mm.
water, and it would allow me to continue on.
Wow. And I sit back and I don't, I had somebody, a friend of mine, a older guy, and he used to always sit back and tell me stories about his past and so forth. And what I took away from him one day, he told me, he said, "Fear is only a illusion. It's, fear is not real. It's only real when you make it real." And I thought about it, and I was like, hmm. So that sort of makes sense. And so every time I get to a point in my life as to where I have to do something, and whatever the case may be, and it's fearful, like I get this sort of little tensed up sensation inside of me. I sit back and I think to myself, I said, the fear is not real. You're only making it real. I have to remind myself mentally. I have to give myself a mental note. So that way when I do that, it allows me to go ahead and step forward
Mhm.
and start to do. And like I said, the fear sort of fades away, but for the most part, just knowing that it doesn't exist, it's only inside of my mind. And I think when a lot of people get to that point, just to understand, you attract everything that you think about. So if you think in fear, you're gonna get fear. If you thinking more on the aspect of, hey, you know what, I got this, you always gonna have it. You just gotta continue to have your mind set on more of what it is that you want versus less of, not even less of. Just don't even focus on what it is that you don't want. You know, and I think people will be able to really overcome their fears. Just don't allow your fears to hold you back. Because the moment that you realize that they're not real, then it's going to be like an eye opener for you. You're going to be like, wow, I really didn't, like, I really thought that, I was scared of this, and I'm really not scared of it. Just like, um, uh, when me and you went out to, uh, was it not parachuting, but when we went to,
Um,
yeah, yeah. So
I
when we
can't
went
think of
out
the
there,
name of it, but yeah.
yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, don't. I can't remember the name of it though. Skydiving. That's what it was. So when
Okay.
we went skydiving, right? Never a day in my life have I ever went skydiving. And I had a little fear in me because I never experienced this before. But when I did it, it was like each step, I was like, okay, I get closer to doing it. Now I'm out here, and it was like, okay, all right, it's not bad. It's like, okay, okay. So that fear mindset just sort of went away. So I would tell anybody, just take those steps to when you get into a point as to where you feel that fear coming inside of you, just sort of think to yourself, hey, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I got this. And then the moment that you got this, the fear subsides.
Yeah. Yes, and so often what's on the other side of fear is just so beautiful and wonderful. And so I don't know why that barrier has been placed there, like everything you want is on the other side of the fear,
Mm.
but
Right,
yeah,
right.
so we just go to the other side and or you can practice sending love to the things that you fear, and um the energy of love does change things. It changes it right in front of your eyes, like right in front of your eyes. You can be in a situation where things aren't looking good, and you just start flowing love towards it, and it will just flip, because
Hmm.
everything responds to the energy of love. And so if you're feeling that in your body, it's gonna knock the fear right out of you, and whatever the situation was that you were fearing, it's gonna dissipate. Like if you got to deal with angry people, and you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with angry people, and you start flowing them love, then some way they feel it. People know, they feel
It's your
it.
energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
know, and it'll just flip the whole situation. So I'm working on becoming fearless and trying to remember to offer to offer love every time I feel the feeling of fear.
Right.
So,
Well, I'm working on that myself. I can say, if anything, every day I work on it just to try to become better at it. Even on my page of words of wisdom, I always everything that I talk about, I work on it every day and try to make myself, better at it. Because especially with fear, fear was one of my biggest issues. Worrying about what other people think and um, being scared to step out the comfort zone and letting go of the attachments of my life. And so now that I've gotten to a point in my life as to where those things no longer really bother me no more because I know how to go about dealing with them. Things sort of brighten up in my life. So
yeah.
yeah, I'll tell anybody, don't let fear hold you back.
Yes, definitely. And just keep your attention on what it is that you want. And if you're still at the place where you just got to hold your breath and run through it,
Yeah,
shoot, just do it, because for real, what you want is on the other side. So I would just encourage you to move past the fear, if that means being courageous, or if it means to transcend fear, which is to recognize that we're all connected to everything, and the energy of love changes everything. And so if you can start practicing offering that out to the world and offering that out to whatever your fear is, I promise you will see results. So
back.
thank you, guys. Thank you for joining Stephen and I. And Stephen, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, bye bye.
See you later.